Did you know that Hubble had a major impact in allowing New Horizons to move past Pluto? And did you know that China has gone back to the moon? I wonder what they've got going on up over there. It's going to be pretty awesome and interesting. We've got those stories and a whole lot more for the first show of 2019. This is Tomorrow Space, Orbit 12.01.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
We made it to 2019!
Yay!
We've got a bunch of people, let's start down on the end. We are joined by Space Mike. Mike, you are working, remind me, what's the project you're working on right now?
Right now, I am involved with a project called Borderless Labs. We're trying to create educational content for underserved students all around the world. So we're starting to make all sorts of content on our YouTube channel. We're going to have a podcast that's going to be starting soon. So yeah, you can definitely check that out. Borderless Labs, the youtube.com/Borderless Labs. And if you would like to help us to support the kids that we're trying to help out and give them science experiments and eventually get to the point where we can build our own CubeSat, then head on over to patreon.com/Borderless Labs.
We've also got a guest host, Christian Reddy from LaunchPad Astronomy. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing over there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christian Reddy, and thanks so much for having me on today. I have a small channel on YouTube called LaunchPad Astronomy, and it's also the name of a workshop that we run every year for writers to teach them astronomy. I'm also a professor of astronomy at Towson University, and I like astronomy. So nice to see you guys.
I would hope so. Yeah. Then we've got two members from House Gryffindor. We've got, right, a little bit.
I think you mean House Griffith Jenkins.
Griffith. Wow. Sarah Vincent and Jared Head both come to us from the Griffith Observatory, although not representing the Griffith Observatory. It's an absolutely beautiful observatory that the general public can go to if you want to. Observatories.
It's one of the few municipally run observatories in the world.
Yeah, and you actually can come up and look through our telescopes for free. Yeah. So you don't have to charge anything for it. So.
We've got Lisa Strojanowski, Mini Stoj.
You got my last name right. Good job.
Formerly, not normally? Formerly of an aerospace company, but now starting to try to work on Tomorrow full time. And my name is Benjamin Higginbotham. I am with an aerospace company. I'm not allowed to mention who they are, so we're just going to call them Company X for now. Not representing Company X at all on the show. All right, Christian, part of the reason you're on this particular show is you just had a huge epic-a-thon, as did we all, because I think the big news of the first thing going into 2019,
bam,
Ultima Thule.
Yep.
How absolutely amazing. Who wants to take off? We should probably cover what this was before we get into how we got there. Who wants to take what was this mission?
Oh, man. Okay,
sounds like you're doing it, sir.
All right, okay. All right, so New Horizons. It is a spacecraft launched by NASA and the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. Dr. Alan Stern's the principal investigator on that, and they went past Pluto in 2015. It was the first spacecraft to ever visit Pluto.
Got that beautiful heart shot.
Absolutely amazing.
Like we had no idea prior to New Horizons. We just had those blurry little Hubble photos.
It was like 12 pixels from Hubble.
Yeah.
And so, well, we just kept going because when NASA has a working spacecraft, they keep using it. So after it flew past Pluto, they picked a new object using Hubble, and it's a Kuiper Belt object. And the Kuiper Belt is kind of this debris field of ice balls beyond the orbit of Neptune, and it's some of the oldest stuff in the solar system. It's the leftovers that didn't form planets, and so we want to know more about that so we can help figure out how our planets formed. And so they picked another object. They called it 2014 MU69.
Rolls right off the tongue. Thanks,
Absolutely.
astronomers.
So, of course, Alan Stern and team, they gave it a nickname of Ultima Thule.
How you
want to pronounce that is totally up to you. There are like 15 correct pronunciations wherever you look.
Does that have a meaning? Actually, I never even looked that up.
Oh, it's the farthest island. It's from
that
Greek
makes sense.
cartography.
Because it is the furthest thing that we've ever gone to.
It is the farthest thing, absolutely.
That's a half true state. It's the furthest thing you've ever explored.
Exactly.
Like the Voyagers are technically.
Voyagers are both far beyond.
But they're
New
not. They're
Horizons,
just
but
like they're not. They're just sending data back. They don't have a thing in front of them to look at.
Exactly. Yeah. And so on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, New Horizons flew past its second Kuiper Belt object, and that is MU-69.
So the thing that I found interesting, I was at dinner on New Year's Day, or lunch or something. I don't know. I was eating food with a few people from X and whatnot, Company X, and I didn't know the Hubble thing, and I thought that was really interesting because apparently, do you know this story? You know this story.
Yeah, and actually, Terrence Shepard on YouTube said, "Aren't you glad we got Hubble back up and running?"
Oh yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah,
absolutely, Terrence.
I think everybody's glad.
Very happy about that.
Love
just
you,
had to
Hubble.
turn it off and turn it back on again. So literally,
IT crowd for the
This
win.
cinematic as well. At least the gyro, yes.
But the Hubble side of it.
Yeah, so we needed Hubble because when they launched, actually it might have been like the year before we launched New Horizons, they knew that they wanted to go past Pluto because they knew that the spacecraft would probably still be healthy. And so if you're spending all this money to like make it go, why not explore more things if your spacecraft is still in an operating condition and get the most for your budget?
Absolutely.
And so they needed to find an object that would still be within the trajectory that New Horizons was taking past Pluto because they didn't have too much fuel to be able to do lots of different maneuvers to get them around to different places in the solar system. And it turns out, thanks to Hubble, that they managed to find some objects that they could go and explore that were close enough.
But
to
Hubble
the
didn't
path.
want to.
They
They
didn't-
were like, that's not astronomy. We're not going to move. Why would we do that? We're Hubble.
So they originally were using ground-based telescopes to try and find these, but they couldn't find anything with the ground-based telescopes, and they were kind of running out of time. And so they asked Hubble if they could use Hubble, and they went, Hubble's not used for doing these kind of surveys. We look at the deep far-out stuff. Why are we going to waste Hubble time doing this? And then when they asked again, and they were like, can we... please let us use Hubble.
We can use Hubble time.
And eventually they agreed. And lo and behold, Hubble saved the day and discovered Ultima Thule.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of stuff beforehand, and so this may not be totally accurate, but as I understand it, it actually also looked over at Pluto when it was overlooking at Pluto. Oh, there you go, Hubble model. Oh, I love how you just have a Hubble model hanging out.
yeah.
I did a bunch of videos back in October to explain what was going wrong with Hubble and the gyroscopes, and so I downloaded this and spent basically like a couple of days trying to put this together. And as you can see, the craftsmanship is just first rate. But anyway, but it's enough to get the point across in terms of like the pivoting and so forth. But to add to Lisa's point, yes, this is the first time this observatory has been used to conduct any kind of a survey. I mean, Hubble's an extremely narrow field of view. It's intended for tight-in, close-up, so to speak, type of astronomy, but it's not used for surveys. Thankfully, they knew exactly where New Horizons was, and they knew exactly where to point the Hubble Space Telescope. So they got what we call director's discretionary time, which is basically convincing the head honcho at the Space Telescope Science Institute, okay, this is worth doing, and this is when the boss says, all right, boys and girls, we're going to go ahead and look for something, and we're going to do this particular bit of science. So another famous example of director's discretionary time you may have heard of is the Hubble Deep Field that we got to do back in 1995. Yeah. And that was another project that was thought would be unsuccessful. No one knew, and our director said, we're going to do it. Screw it, let's get it done. And history was made, and we're still learning so much about the cosmos from that one particular image.
We need to give the directors more discretionary time is what I'm learning from this conversation. Because
well, the director gets the benefit of being the director, and so he or she can afford to take that risk.
That makes sense.
If you're an astronomer and your career is based upon what the science you can do, you really can't afford to take that risk.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, too, Hubble is technically a public asset, so anyone can propose a study to do on Hubble. So, I could go home and write a proposal right now if I wanted to and send that at the Space Telescope Science Institute, and they could either give me yay or nay on it. So if any viewers at home would like to have some Hubble time, just write a proposal for it.
Could we do a shared proposal of tomorrow?
I was going to say, maybe we should get together, go in the community forum and figure out what makes sense and be like, tomorrow would like to see this. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Community.tmro.tv.
Science papers.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like this idea.
Yeah.
So Hubble helped save the day, essentially, right? Because without Hubble's... Actually, you brought up a good point about Hubble. A dumb question. Like, it's designed to basically be very stationary, not do sweeps, right? It's designed to, like, focus on a single point and grab as much light from that point as it can before it moves on. But when you're trying to do sky surveys, you want to tend to do more sweeping type, like, look at different areas. Did they try to figure out how to make Hubble do a little bit of a sweep, or did they just kind of go, well, New Horizons will be here, so what's here? Kind of thing.
That's pretty much it. It's the latter. Yeah. So there was a clear understanding. I mean, New Horizons had a cone of possible delta V that they could have employed using the fuel remaining. So there was a certain search radius in the sky, but it was extremely small compared to, even what Hubble can see. It was actually well within Hubble's field of view. So thankfully, they only needed to look in more or less one region of the sky. They didn't have to do these wide sweeping surveys, which would be very inefficient. But as Isa said, everything out there is very faint, and you're running out of time, and you're running out of photons, and you're running out of sensitivity. So the only telescope that was capable of finding anything was Hubble. But Ultima Thule, as it turns out, is a relatively large, at least we think it's a relatively large and therefore relatively bright object in the Kuiper Belt. However, it does not necessarily mean that Ultima Thule is statistically significantly different from anything else in the Kuiper Belt. So it seems like there's a really good classical Kuiper Belt object that we're getting our very first look at in great detail, and best of all, in even greater detail in the coming weeks.
Yes.
Now, we got a question here from Lars von Braun, who wants to know, how long did Hubble search for these objects? Anyone know?
I think they found it.
No idea.
If I recall correctly,
Fairly quickly.
the exposures were basically like a couple of hours over several days. And then they basically, I know with the ground-based telescopes, they were like, we can't find anything, man.
Yeah.
And then Hubble just like looked at it and was like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So it was like almost basically the images that Hubble took were the exact images.
Kind of really makes you appreciate Hubble even that much
yeah.
more. I mean, not that I didn't appreciate
Right.
it. Wow.
Yeah, and what was so important about that too is that Hubble can do astrometry really well, which is basically figuring out very precisely where an object is. So from a very small set of images, we were basically able to build the orbital elements of those objects and then be able to do something like New Horizons did, where you have a very precise flyby of a very small object very far away.
Mike?
I have a question for anyone that might know. Did Hubble have anything to do with the discovery of some of the additional moons at Pluto, like Kerberos and P4 and some of those others?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You couldn't see, but we're all like bouncing
Yeah.
Well, wasn't there something about like collision avoidance maneuvers and stuff like that, and things that Hubble like saw around Pluto so that New Horizons could avoid crashing into anything?
Precisely. That's exactly what they were using it for. It was not, hey, wouldn't it be fun to discover some new moons? It was, wouldn't it be fun if we could verify that our flight path won't destroy us? That was
So you thought this was going to be a show about New Horizons, but it ends up being a show about how Hubble has saved New Horizons by creating the collision avoidance.
I'm biased toward Hubble. I used to work on Hubble, so I'm always happy to talk about Hubble. But
How many times can you say Hubble in one sentence?
I have to give credit where it's due, and that's of course to the New Horizons team for this remarkable accomplishment.
But they're not done, aren't they? They're going to another object after this, aren't they? Well, I mean, they're going to keep going. They can't stop, right?
It depends, obviously, on two things. Fuel on board. I mean, fuel is everything. And then the second thing it depends on is the scientific justification. So one fortunate thing is that we actually do have another telescope in space, and that is New Horizons itself. It has the Long Range Reconnaissance Imager, or LORI, which is a telescope. And even though it's a lot smaller than Hubble, it is a lot farther out, and they're using that to try to recon and perhaps identify a target or two to fly by.
So let's just say they find that target, and then let's just say that we go to that target. After we go past that target, because again, you mentioned fuel. I heard, but we're down to like minuscule amount of fuel left on this spacecraft. It's virtually nothing.
11 kilograms.
11 kilograms, right? So, and if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be directional antennas on New Horizons. So, if you have to make a maneuver, you've got to also figure out some way to make sure that your antenna continues to be pointed at Earth. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, we actually saw that during the live stream. There's this thing that you can go to called NASA Eyes, and NASA Eyes on the Solar System.
Eyes on the Solar System.
Yeah.
And you could see as we were approaching, there was one point where New Horizons had its radio dish turned back towards Earth, and obviously it was transmitting. And then it could tell you which instruments were on at which time, and you could see it has the lorry camera pointing at New Horizons, but it can't do those at the same time, because when it's pointing the camera, at Ultima Thule, then its radio dish is pointing up instead of at Earth. So you've got to make this choice of am I communicating with Earth? Am I observing this object that I want to look at? And they even did another experiment called the Rex experiment. I think you guys were saying something about the DSN in that as well, right?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they were doing some radio science while they were out there as well with Rex, which is their radio dish or their communications package that they have on that. So, but I haven't heard anything any results or anything from that yet.
Yeah,
So.
and part of that is because the data rate of return from New Horizons is so small.
Yeah.
They made a whole bunch of weight versus speed choices, and they chose.
That's true of all aerospace.
Absolutely.
Hard stop.
Yes. And they chose a really slow data rate in exchange for more science and more speed to get out to Pluto as quickly as possible. And so their data rate is the bytes per second.
I understand half of that. So I understand getting to Pluto faster because it's a lighter spacecraft.
Right.
How does that translate to more science?
So they could have made their antenna and their transmitter bigger and more powerful, and so they could have transmitted more data faster. Or they
Wouldn't
could
that
have,
be more science then?
It's not more science, but in the situation. So what they did was they said, okay, we're going to have our spacecraft completely dedicated to studying whatever it's going by. So we're going to just get all the information we can possibly get at Pluto because we're going to be going by so fast. We want to have as many instruments working at one time as we possibly can. We're going to get all that information, and then as we go by, after we're done collecting, then we'll turn our antenna back to Earth, and we'll take a couple years to download everything.
That makes sense. Store and forward, right?
Yes.
So they're gathering as much stuff as they can.
Thule, there was a worry. Even with Ultima Thule, there was a worry that they might actually miss it. That the flyby was going by so quickly that they might actually miss getting those close-up photos.
Yeah, and as you were watching the live stream of the team's reaction as they were checking each of the missions on the check-in after the flyby, the one that got the largest response from the team itself was the solid-state drive recorders. They're full. And that's when everyone exploded. I was like, yes, we got information.
Data from far away.
Well, that means they need to download
Now
the
that doesn't mean
information.
that they actually got usable data,
Right.
but
It just means the stuff. The reason.
in fairness, there's that one little teeny tiny thing. However, I had the opportunity to speak with some of the members of the science team, and I believe this was my conversation with Dr. Schenk from the Lunar Planetary Science Institute, and what he told me was that they had just done a software upload just prior to flyby, where they were refining their computation, their calculations for where they needed to point the spacecraft. Because keep in mind, they didn't even get a light curve off of this thing heading toward Ultima. So there was a lot of uncertainty as to the exact geometry of the object and where they would point, but they were getting just a little bit of a light curve. They verified it was in fact bilobate, and so they went ahead and updated their pointing. Now, the reason why they're confident is because
I'm dumb. What's a light curve?
Go ahead.
What's a light curve?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, a light curve. So that's basically a plot of brightness versus time. So in the case of a rotating object reflecting sunlight, if it's rotating, well, a little bit like this, you would expect over time, here you'd see less light, and then you'd see more light,
Sure.
and then you'd see less light and more light. Well, you can learn a lot about the shape, the morphology, well, maybe not the morphology, but certainly the shape and the overall geometry of an object that way. However, they weren't getting such a light curve. The light stayed mostly flat, and that tells us that Ultima was actually rotating kind of like this, facing us. So what they were seeing, well, they didn't know what the shape was, but they assumed it was bilobate. And then on New Year's Eve, when they actually jumped from 1 pixel to, I think, 6 pixels, they verified that, yes, this is an elongated bilobate object. Anyway, back to my conversation with the science team. What I was told was that they were able to, using that information, do a last-minute software update, which tweaked the sequence. And the reason why they're feeling very good that they've gotten the closest approach images stored on board the spacecraft right now is because Ultima appeared, that wide field shot that we were treated to on New Year's Day, Ultima appeared exactly in the frame where they expected it to. So that meant that, okay, good, we got the spacecraft pointed at exactly the right position, Ultima's exactly where expected, and if they got that part right, then maybe they've got the rest of the flyby correct, and they probably have, because these guys are good. I mean, they're really good. They're smarter than Mike.
When does
Definitely, for sure. They're definitely smarter than
have they already started full data
They're
download?
smarter than me. I mean, but then again, you're smarter than me. Come on.
According to BEF in the chat room, they are downlinking, and they say, my understanding is they've got a bit rate of about 100 bytes per second right now.
Yeah,
But
thereabouts.
That's about the same as the Australian internet?
Yeah.
Yes, actually. So.
So there's a bit of a hiatus on the data download because it's behind the sun right now.
Yeah, solar conjunction.
Large object in the way.
It might be some interference from that plasma ball.
No amount of forward error correction is going to fix that.
Yeah.
When does it pop out the other side?
I think it's an 11-day conjunction.
Yeah. So the team, as far as we know,
They're
basically
on
they
vacation.
wrapped up everything yesterday, and they're now taking a very well-deserved break.
The longest nap known to humanity.
Yes, I will slumber for 11 days. But I will return. When I return, make sure there is a load of data for me.
But did we get anything? So we saw that the solid state drives were full, but did we get anything that goes, okay, this is usable data, not just a bunch of, it only recorded ones?
Yeah, the imagery.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
You can start work. Look at these images right here. Like that is clearly too.
I think the one on the right is post-processed sharpened. And the one on the left, if I remember right, is actually off of New Horizons itself.
No, they're both off of New Horizons. The one on the left is they got closer on the one on the right. So
okay.
they're
So
the same
it's
image,
not
a little bit.
post-processed,
but it's just they've gone in
it's just
closer.
corrected
It
the
happened
distance.
later on in the
optically
flyby.
sharpened.
Yeah.
Via distance.
Yeah. You also know what
Zoom
color it
enhanced.
is too.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
very
yeah, this is
red.
color. Yeah.
So, which tells us that there's a process that's actually changing the chemistry of the surface, and it'll be really interesting to see what that chemistry is specifically, because if we find things that were sort of similar to what we found at Pluto, like organics and things like that, it will be very interesting, because that kind of stuff usually breaks down in ultraviolet radiation.
So
from
we
the
weren't
sun.
expecting any of this on like a Kuiper Belt object, because we've never been to a Kuiper Belt object
so we knew
before,
it was
something Pluto.
So we knew it was really, really red, and it basically the classical Kuiper Belt objects. These are Kuiper Belt objects that are very. They're all sort of in the same area. They're beyond Neptune's orbit. And they're classical because they remain in the plane of the solar system, what we call the ecliptic, which is where most of the stuff of the solar system lies. There's stuff weird, like Pluto's a weird object. It lies out of the ecliptic by a significant amount. These have sort of all been like tossed by Neptune out into these orbits very early on in the formation of the solar system. So as we were talking about on the live stream, we've studied comets before, and we sort of like to call comets cosmic time capsules because we've studied them and they sort of have some of the leftovers of the solar system's formation. But the problem with them is that the comets that we've studied, at least, like Wild 2 with Stardust and Churyumov-Gerasimenko with Rosetta, those have come in towards the sun. So that means the sun has actually influenced the surfaces of these objects. So we're not just seeing the object itself, we're seeing the influence of the sun acting with it and changing the chemistry and other things like that. In the case of something like Ultima Thule, where it's way the heck out there, the sun has not, in general, interacted with this object. So it's literally been this frozen thing out there for 4.6 billion years, and that is pristine material from that nebulous cloud that made up the solar system. So that's why it's exciting that this is far away and that this is the furthest thing we've ever explored. But it's triply exciting to me because this is what we are made out of. So without the influence of anything else, and this will give us a definitive answer as to what was around and what the conditions were like at that time.
Is that the why here? Because with all this astronomy stuff, I usually am like, but why? Who cares?
Yes.
Who cares? Is that the who cares moment?
Yeah, very much. This is us. Very much.
This is us? Ultima Thule, this is us? Is that we need a shirt now. That's the shirt for the show. Yeah.
We'll just put the picture of it on there, and this is us.
Is there anything else we can expect
snowman.
from this from a snowman?
Well, because it looks like a snowman, so it could be.
It does.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
But
I think Jared, you said that so well. I mean, this is a truly what we call unprocessed, right? This is an unprocessed chunk of the earliest solar system, or even the pre-solar system. One thing that's really interesting about this type of science, whenever you're getting into the Kuiper Belt, you are dealing with these pristine fossils of when the solar system formed, even before. Well, right now we are studying planetary systems forming around other stars, and so we can use instruments like the ALMA, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, and we can reveal these remarkable spoke-like or bullseye-like structures surrounding stars. Well, these are protoplanetary disks containing tracks that are being carved out by protoplanets. Well, now we are kind of, in a way, looking into our own or exploring our own solar system's remaining protoplanetary disk by getting into the Kuiper Belt. So Jared is spot on. I mean, we are now finding our earliest roots in the solar system. And as we said before, it's probably a very statistically representative sample of that protoplanetary disk that we formed from.
Where do we go from here?
Cool.
Well, we were talking about that before. Where do we go from here? Obviously, that is the next question. I know that Alan Stern says that they are going to, in 2020, they're going to propose a second extended mission. That'll be after all the data has been downloaded and everything, and they're going to look for another object they could potentially fly by, see what's different, see what's the same, all that kind of stuff. So there's more to come. We hope.
I think this is a pretty good breaking point, unless there's anything else. We will talk about the insane, crazy webcast that you did a little bit later on, because I want to talk a little bit about what you've got going on, but I think we'll leave that for a little bit later on the show. I think what we'll do right now is we'll take a quick calendar break. We've got launch coming up this next week, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about what China is doing on the far side of the room, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, through the heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And AOS, the station has emerged from the other side of the sun.
Yeah.
Come out of occultation.
We have downlink again.
Very small star. Yeah.
DSN is able to receive our signal once more.
Are we transmitting faster than New Horizons is?
How can you not?
Yeah,
Actually,
we're in
that's
lock.
actually a good question because Voyager actually has like decent transmitters, but they're really far out there. So
Yeah.
which one's fast? I have to imagine
Voyager.
Voyager's faster.
Yeah, Voyager's
Data
transmitting
downlink
just a
was.
little bit faster.
Wow.
I
A little
gotta
bit more
imagine that
data.
that's dropping over time, though.
Oh,
right? That
absolutely.
speed,
Yeah.
because-
But the comms package, I think the comms dish on Voyager is actually bigger than the entire New Horizons spacecraft.
Yeah.
So, and
ridiculous.
that comes a lot from the fact that it was the 70s. So, so you know.
yeah. And Voyager doesn't have to do. Oh, actually, that's, I know we're supposed to be moving on to China, but that. Oh, and I also did forget my citizen slate, so I'll do that in a second. Well, all right. No, we'll do it now. We'll do it now. It's a live show. It's a live show. I forgot to thank the citizens of tomorrow in the last segment. I'm so sorry. Citizens of tomorrow, you make this show happen. You're the ones who. Allow us to pay the bills, keep the lights on, and afford the downlink back to the DSN week after week. So these are people who contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows at Tomorrow and all of our crazy wackiness, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And one of the new things you get is early access. We get like the pre-show, the show, and the post-show is one giant unedited thing. So you actually get to see all of the shenanigans that happened before the show just to start the show.
Yes.
Because we were a little rusty.
Yeah,
Took
that was
a
fun
week
today.
off. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wasn't it 2 weeks off?
Whatever. I did have a question. Before we move on to China, when New Horizons needs to maneuver and point its attendant back at Earth, are we using prop for that, or are we using reaction wheels to move it? Anyone know?
Oh. I don't know. Chat room?
I
Anyone?
believe both. I thought like they have to use a little bit of the thrusters, propellants, to orient itself, and then use the gyroscopes to stay still and not keep on moving in whatever direction the thrusters were. Because if you can get away with just a little bit, a minimal amount, instead of having to use your thrusters to keep yourself stable while you're doing that, that would be great. But I could be wrong. I thought it was both. But
So
and
reaction
just for
wheels.
reference too. With the propellants, I believe that the tanks starting off with it had 77 kilograms of propellant, and now it's down to 11. So
So we have a little
just
bit of
for
life
reference.
left. Yeah, I mean, I assume that a good chunk of the momentum, the energy, was done by the rocket itself and any upper stages, and then this is just for maneuvering.
And Jupiter as well.
And Jupiter, large gravitational objects.
Yeah. And I imagine Pluto gave it a little
do a
bit
course
too.
correction on the way to Jupiter, and then another after the flyby of Jupiter.
Kay McCoy says New Horizons doesn't have reaction wheels.
So then no reaction wheel.
Wow.
Okay.
Propellant.
They don't use the
Well then.
reaction wheels to reorient it because they don't have it. So there you go.
So, and there's one less thing to break.
And they do seem to be breaking a lot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
going back to Hubble, right?
Hubble, Dawn, Kepler.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So actually, Mike, this seems like this seems like right up your alley. China. Forgive me. You guys have pronounced this for me like 20 times prior to the show.
Chang'e for.
Chang'e.
Chong.
No, not
Chang'e.
chimichanga. Jeez.
So that g.
Yeah.
Drop
You
that. So Chong.
Chang'e.
Yeah.
Chang'e.
Yeah.
Chang'e
And
four.
if you say it as if you're surprised, you'll probably get the toning right.
Okay. All right. So Chang'e 4. I'm still.
Chang'e 4.
Yeah. What? Space Mike, what is it?
So this mission was awesome, and it's funny because it seems like it's not really getting that big of a reaction within China. They're just like, oh yeah, that's cool, because this was actually a backup to the Chang'e 3 mission. The Chang'e 3 mission was the first time that they had a lander and rover on the surface of the moon. And so Chang'e 4 is a backup for that, but it does have different instruments, and it does have a little bit of upgrades too, like the rover, the U2 rover, which means, and that's YUTU, it means moon rabbit. It only went something like, I think it was 114 meters before it got stuck. So they had to upgrade software, and they have a little bit of hardware changes too with the wheels and stuff like that, so that hopefully this new rover will be able to go a little bit further. But aside from those upgrades, the science instruments are completely different. Most of them were supplied by universities or companies within Europe. So a lot of the data that they're going to be collecting is going to be shared worldwide. And this is exciting because this is the first object to ever land on the far side of the moon. Commonly known as the dark side of the moon.
No, but it's not.
No, stop that!
It's not
Stop
the dark
that!
side of the moon.
Stop it!
Yeah, it's not dark. It's not dark. And in fact, the whole darkness issue, I mean, this mission was launched on December 8th of last year, and it's been in orbit around the moon since December 12th. They could have landed the lander and rover at just about any time, but they wanted to make sure that the landing destination in the von Karman crater would be illuminated by the sun. It wouldn't be in the lunar night. And since a full revolution of the moon takes a little over 29 days, I mean, a lunar night lasts about 2 weeks. So if they didn't do the landing now when they did it, they would have had to wait a while, 2 weeks to almost a month before they would have been able to try to do a landing then, when it's illuminated. Not just so that they could get really cool pictures, but because the rover is mainly solar powered, and they wanted to drive that thing right away. They didn't want to have to wait for any operations, and so they wanted to make sure that the far side of the moon would be illuminated by the sun when they attempted this landing.
So the landing was a power requirement, right? It wasn't a we need to be able to see stuff. It was the photovoltaics needed power, and they didn't want to. What happens when they lose power? Like, they're going to lose the sun. Is it just going to it'll just drain the power, and then when the sun comes back up, they expect it'll just kick back on, or does it have enough onboard power to keep it through the nighttime, the lunar night?
I remember that with the first rover that they had, the first U-2 rover, it did survive for a while within the lunar night, but I think it only survived like 2 or 3 lunar nights before it completely died, because where it got stuck, its orientation didn't allow for it to completely recharge during the lunar day. So hopefully that won't be a problem with this one. However, the lander for Chang-e 3 is still operational right now. They actually put it into hibernation mode during the landing sequence for Chang-e 4 so that it wouldn't interfere with communications or anything like that, since they're not using it as any type of relay. And that's still operational. And so hopefully the lander portion of this will still be operational for them for years to come.
Well, wait, what's the lander part? Because it's 2 parts, right? You got the lander that goes down to the moon and it's stuck there. And then you got the little rover that comes off, and then it goes and does this exploring. Is there science on the lander payload as well?
There is. I just don't know which ones there are. There's a couple of different science payloads that they're going to do. One of them is radar, looking at subsurface layers and hopefully discovering some lava tubes. Another one is several different spectrometers to measure different mineral compositions. And there's even a handful that are looking at radio frequencies as well. And I believe that the radio frequencies spectrometers are the ones that are on the lander portion, and most of the other instruments are on the lander, on the rover. But I could be wrong about that. I think there's only 1 or 2 instruments that are on the lander, and all the rest of them are on the rover. However, there is a really cool biosphere experiment, and that actually might be the one that's on the lander, not the rover. They have this really cool canister that is pressurized and sealed that has potato seeds in it, seeds for something called Arabidopsis, also known as thalecress. And then it also has some larvae for silkworms. And they hopefully will have some sort of live stream whenever those cocoons are hatching, basically. And this is an experiment just to see if they can, number one, have this successful little greenhouse experiment on the moon, but also it's just to see what will happen with those plants and with those silkworms in 1/6 gravity. And that's for their future plans of enabling future human spaceflight, because China eventually wants to have their own base on the surface of the moon.
That's incredible.
I can't believe they're going to live stream. Is that going to be the first live stream from the moon?
Probably.
Potentially?
Yeah, and I think the live stream isn't going to be from China. Like, it's the university that
It's going to be from the moon, Mike. The live stream's going to be from the moon.
There's silkworms on the moon. There's living silkworms on the moon right now. I mean, they're in hibernation. I mean, they're just in their larvae cocoon stage. But when those things, that's crazy to me.
Is this the first life on the moon that we know of since the 70s?
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing that blows my mind. Like New Horizons, we saw everywhere, right? Everyone was well aware of New Horizons, Ultima Thule. Like we saw all of that. I saw almost no news on this whatsoever Like, it was just kind of like, oh, by the way, China's on the moon. It's like, but, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I didn't even know they brought life with them on the moon. They're Watney potatoes.
Yeah.
They got to call it the Watney experiment. Potatoes on foreign alien bodies will forever be known as Watneys.
Yep.
So in terms of how they can get the live stream down from the moon, Frida raises a good point that all data transmitted to Chang-e 4 is relayed through another Chinese satellite orbiting the moon. How innovative.
And don't they have a boat too? Isn't there?
Like a buoy?
See, I think, so I brought up in a previous show that they have kind of like a DSN network that's on a really large ship, like a really large barge that they that has a bunch of satellite dishes on it, but that's not actually used for this mission. They have two ground stations. One of them is in China and the other one is in Argentina that all the QCOW relays are going to. The QCOW satellite that's in orbit that's getting all the signals from the Chang'e 4 lander and then relaying those signals to these two ground stations. And at least as far as the official stuff that I've seen, didn't mention anything about that mobile ship that is still deployed out in the China Sea right now that is for a spacecraft purpose. So that might be for a completely different satellite. China has launched a couple of military communications satellites recently, so maybe it has something to do with that, but that's just me speculating.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a comment that actually was posted before the show that we want to bring in, and it came off the community forums from Simon. And it's kind
Hi,
of
Simon.
Yeah, hi Simon.
Hello, Simon.
Thanks for commenting.
Simon says.
Oh, hey, he'll be here all night.
So Simon commented that lately ESA, Roscosmos, and the China Space Agency wish to cooperate in space, but for NASA it's prohibited. Is this prohibition of cooperation with China still relevant? What impact will this ban have on moon projects and maybe on other deep space projects too?
I never fully understood where does anyone know why we prohibit that in the first place? Are we just like we don't like their human rights stuff? Is that the thing?
Exactly. Because of human rights violations, we basically have all these, it's not just for space, but there's all these different bands of projects that we don't want to cooperate with China on. However, we still have to do business with China because of rare earth metals and a whole bunch of other reasons. So, but as far as cooperating with their space program, the space program is one of the reasons that violates their human rights because they launch rockets over cities, and sometimes some of the boosters lands on cities, and sometimes they've had outright failures that have killed hundreds of people. I think even, I don't know what the number count is for their worst disaster, but lots of people have died. And even the recovery, people are getting sick because the fuels are hypergolic and very, very toxic, and they're just landing them all over the place. And so their space program, in its own way, is violating human rights. And so that's where this whole thing comes from. And the whole UN, that's the whole thing with all this human rights stuff. It's the UN that is putting all of these things like, oh, China is so bad about this. But it's only the United States that's actually kind of following those recommendations. And it's just like, yeah, those human rights violations are horrible. What NASA is prohibited from working with China with their space program because their space program violates human rights. I know that's a kind of a generic answer here, but I guess that's the Reader's Digest version.
Then let's see backwards though. Because all we're doing is we're forcing them to enhance their space program because we won't work with them, so they have to build their own space station. They have to build their own lunar programs.
Also, I was going to say,
they actually have been working on a solution to that, at least for their human spaceflight side. They have a whole new launch pad that they've developed over the past couple of years on Hainan Island, which is south of China, and all those launches go over the ocean. So no worries there. That kind of solves the problem, at least for human space flights. But they're still going to be launching from some of their other sites for like polar launches and stuff like that. So unless they have all new launch sites all over the place that don't fly over inhabited areas, this is the best that they can do right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw on too that several United States companies in the early 90s and mid 90s actually did launch their satellites on Chinese rockets. But then there was one of their major rocket disasters where it literally crashed into the village next to the launch pad. In the investigation, they found that China actually took the plans from these satellites that the United States had built, and that was a very big. I remember
Is this
reading
what
about that.
ITAR was formed out of?
Yes, exactly. So
Was that Intelsat?
yes, it was one of the Intelsats.
So Kieran K says for that Intelsat disaster, approximately between 200 and 500 people might have been killed in that crash.
Actually, I have seen that footage, and it is devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It is bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that rocket goes like off of the pad sideways
goes
immediately, and
And
not
then
good.
There's an aftermath of like what happened to that city, and it was like, I mean, a missile hit it essentially.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got way off track with that. What was the original question? Like, do we think that will change? I mean, fundamentally, I guess, in my opinion, if they change. Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess the question that Simon had too was like if they're going to be cooperating with stuff. I mean, they're cooperating with everybody else except for the United States, and the United States is reaching out to everyone else as well for lunar projects, the whole Deep Space Gateway and all that type of thing. Whereas China is kind of leading the effort of having a international collaborative effort to send humans back to the moon and set up a international base that would have crew rotations, kind of like what we do at the International Space Station right now. And the United States is being left out of all those planning meetings.
Yeah, unless I suppose that there's a major foreign policy shift here in the United States, it's probably not going to be changing at all, simply because it's law, and that's a very difficult kind of law in order to get changed. So.
Yep. I don't have enough data to actually come to any real conclusions on that. I don't think I'm well versed enough in it, but yeah, I can see both sides of that particular argument. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Christian, did you have any thoughts there?
It is a bit of a knife edge there. Right? I mean, on the one hand, we don't want to reward bad behavior. On the other hand, these are endeavors that I think we should be involved in. And I don't think any one nation can do it by themselves. And I think if you want to get to the geopolitical side of things, what China is doing is what's I understand is called soft power projection. Well, if we want to still be a leader in this, maybe we should be involved, or maybe we should head off and just do Mars and let them do the moon. I've heard all kinds of arguments back and forth. I really don't know if I have a confident position on this yet, because it is a gray area, and we just don't want to be rewarding bad behavior.
You brought up a good point. Moon first or Mars first?
Yeah. I've always thought maybe going back to the moon would be a better idea, because we've lost so much of that. Oh, there goes my Hubble model. Sorry. We've lost so much of that institutional knowledge.
Knocked it out of orbit.
Yeah.
Hubble's down! Hubble's down!
It encountered the lower atmosphere and drag.
Oh no.
Was it the reaction wheels?
Yeah,
Too soon, man. Too
I
soon.
fixed those. Anyway, back to this. Sure. I mean, as far as going to, I forgot what the question was.
Should we go to the moon, or go back to the moon, or onto Mars?
Oh yeah, and I was saying we've lost so much institutional knowledge. I mean, the good news is that we can regain a lot of that by going back to the moon. On the other hand, if we think we have learned enough lessons from Apollo, then maybe we should. So once again, I really don't have a firm opinion on this. Here's what I think will probably happen. NASA will return to the moon. SpaceX will go to Mars. That's my expectation at this point.
And we didn't even put this in the show, but they've got that big shiny rocket sitting in South Texas now.
They sure do.
It looks like something out of a sci-fi, like it
really does.
It looks like something out of the 1960s sci-fi future, right?
Yeah.
I think it literally looks like the TWA Moonliner to me a little bit.
Oh yeah, kind of does.
A little bit, but like shiny.
It's like a fatter
It's
TWA.
like if you were to take Marvin the Martian and the TWA Moonliner and slam them together.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on China's lunar ambitions?
Go China.
Go China. Yeah.
I think it's very
Yeah, go
interesting.
China. I think
Oh, go ahead.
If I can, not necessarily about China, but just this month and the coming months are really exciting for the moon in general, because India is going to be having their own similar mission, Chandrayaan-2, which is also going to be, it's actually 3 pieces. It's going to be an orbiter, a lander, and a rover. And so the orbiter and lander will separate in orbit around the moon, and then they'll have their own mission. It's going to be on the near side of the moon, so they won't have to have a relay satellite in order to have communications. But they're going to have their own mission, and then in February, the Israeli team, Space IL, that was competing in the Google Lunar X Prize, is going to be launching their Sparrow lander, and it's just a lander. There's no rover on that one, but they're launching their lander to the moon in February. Like, holy crap! Now is like this year might be kind of the year for where we really see the shift towards lunar exploration.
The moon's so hot right now. It's so hot.
Yeah.
Oh, you talk about that. I am super excited for 2019.
Yeah.
Just the amount of stuff that's going to be happening across all space agencies, private and government-based. It's just going to be crazy go nuts. This is an incredible year for space. Yep. This is a great time to be a space nerd. It's super exciting stuff.
All the preparation is done. The door's going to blow wide open now.
Yeah.
And here we go, baby.
It's kind of like, it's like we've been preparing for the last 12 years, 6 months at a time for we're just 6 months out. We're just 6 months out. But it feels like 2019, 2020, it's just going to be mind-blowingly awesome.
Yes.
All of that stuff we've been waiting for. It's now. It's now.
Crew Dragon is on the pad. Crew Dragon is on the launch pad right now, guys.
Oh, man. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we talked about...
I'm really excited for
We talked about Starhopper, but then, we didn't bring up any SpaceX stuff in this show. I didn't put it in the run. I didn't think to. But yeah, we got the dry dress for Crew Dragon happened. It was up on the pad. There were some pictures people took of Dragon with the service arm over. I mean, it just looked...
Yeah, the service arm is out to it, which also looks like something from the 50s vision of the future.
Yeah, kind of, right? It looks a little bit like a 1950s retro future, kind of.
I'm definitely digging the design language going on here.
Yep, absolutely. It's just a really exciting time. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about LaunchPad Astronomy and Christian, kind of what you've been working on. So we'll take a quick break.
But first,
hey. I'm so rusty.
Hold.
I'm so rusty. I am so sorry, patrons. All right, we have the citizen. Thank you, Dutta, for saving me. He's just in the control room shaking his head and doesn't know what he's doing.
Carrie's dying over here.
The citizens of tomorrow who helped to make this entire show happen. These are escape velocity citizens. Of course, we also have our orbital citizens. These are people who contribute $5 or more to the specific episode. It really does mean a lot to us that you're willing to contribute to the show week after week and help contribute to the craziness that is these roundtable discussions in the show itself. And you see, we continue to try to improve the show and do things that are new, different, and interesting and unique, and make the shows. I think something that you look forward to week after week, and your contribution to the show certainly help us quite a bit. And don't forget, of course, head over to community as well. If you can't afford to contribute to the show financially, if you want to contribute to it with just knowledge or your time, if the show is something you love and you want to help in some way, head on over to community, and we'll figure out some way to make all of that happen. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Christian about LaunchPad Astronomy.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
Acquisition of signal. We've got our TDRS time back, so we're back.
Our director's discretionary time.
Director's discretionary TDRS time. Yeah, I'm not going to explain that one. You just got to space nerd that or Google it.
Yeah.
TDRS or TDRSS if you're talking about the whole constellation. All right. So Christian, you did a crazy go nuts 24-hour Ultima Thule webcast, and I was talking earlier that man, 12, 13 hours into those things, you're like, all right, we're almost done, and you realize, nope, you're halfway done. Those are big, huge events. So, what inspired you to do that, and how did it go?
Well, the story is that I had done a couple of videos. First, I knew that Ultima Thule would be a thing coming up in a few months, as far back as August when the New Horizons acquired the first image of its target. I made a video on that, and it started to do okay. And then as we were getting closer in time, I noticed that the views on the video went up. And I thought, well, people are certainly interested in this. Meanwhile, I was trying to see if there was any way I could at least visit the Applied Physics Laboratory, because I have some former coworkers from the Space Telescope Science Institute who are now involved in New Horizons. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of neat if I can get down there and interview them? So I emailed them and said, hey, could I come down? And I heard nothing from them. They were busy getting ready for this flyby. So I had done my recent video on Voyager 2 entering interstellar space. I posted that on Facebook, and I actually know Alan Stern from many years back. He supported our workshop through Uwingu. And being the incredible genius that I am, I never once thought to ask Alan if I could just come down and see the thing. I just totally, he's too busy. I don't want to bother him. Just didn't want to do it. But he saw my video and he said, hey, that means New Horizons is now the farthest object in the heliosphere. And I said, yeah. By the way, I wish you the best of luck. Hope everything goes well. Sorry I can't be with you at APL, but good luck. He says, email me. I'll get you in. So he kind of threw this football to me, and I decided to run it into the end zone because I had a YouTube channel. And I thought, at first I was like, oh, goody, I get to go. I get to hang out. Then I realized, no, wait, I've got a YouTube channel. Let's do this. And I had been partnering with Tony Darnell Tony Darnell from Deep Astronomy. We do an occasional show together called Telescope Talk Pro. And I just realized, Tony would be able to help me with the stream. And then I realized, let's get some more help on here, because I was just realized this could be a party. This could be so much fun. And best of all, not only would I be talking with people, not only could I talk to people who I'm inspired by on New Horizons, but wouldn't it be just fun to just share this with my favorite creators, my favorite channels? And Tomorrow was right at the top of that list, right after, right with up there with Tony. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun if maybe some people from Tomorrow would care to join me and I get to talk to them live on camera? Hey, how neat would that be? And Space Mike came along, and Athena came along, and Lisa. Holy moly, did Lisa ever bring the big guns? She was able to restream this. So thank you, Lisa. You rock. You are fantastic. Thank you so much. And then I started inviting some other folks. I thought, you know what? We got Jared. We got, Jared came on to the show, which was awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks.
And then we even got a few other folks, some people that I have some acquaintances with. Again, people who I've been very inspired by on YouTube and elsewhere. So folks like Scott Manley, were very kind enough to drop by and spend a few minutes chatting with us. Fraser Kane, the people from another channel called Socratica, which actually teaches people how to study. And I teach astronomy at Towson, and I wanted to get them on the phone, get them on the stream so that we could share with them. Sean Carroll was generous enough. Emily Lakdawala was generous enough. David Brin were all generous enough to share some of their New Year's Eve with us. And I just think I had a delightful time, and it was thrown together at the last minute, but holy mackerel, I just stand in awe of you and everybody who graciously joined me for New Year's Eve in the Kuiper Belt. It was a party unlike any other.
Join you in the Kuiper. What was your favorite moment from the entire night?
Oh boy, my favorite moment. I think it would have to be that moment of flyby as far as the entire night's concerned. That was sort of like the pinnacle of the evening. That was the moment we were all waiting for, and it was a bit of a surreal moment because we technically, for all we knew, we had no idea what was going on, right? Like, we had no telemetry from the spacecraft. There was nothing. All we knew was that, well, this is happening out there 6 light hours away, and we're just going to trust in the mission team and the laws of physics to make it a success. And we, of course, we found out that it was. So I think that was my favorite time of the flyby. I think that was everybody's favorite moment.
I think those are always really hard. Like, anytime you're landing on Mars, the entry, descent, landing sequence, when you're doing, the New Horizons flyby of Pluto or the latest flyby, they're really difficult because you know what's happening in spacecraft event time. You know what's happening right now, but there's literally nothing to show the world. Like, you don't have, sometimes you'll have like eyes on the solar system, do some sort of simulation, but it's fake data at that point. It's like, this is, if everything goes correctly, this is it. It's really, really difficult. And I'm hopeful. So there's laws of physics stuff, right, where speed of light, until we can bend space-time onto itself and move things quicker.
Yeah.
Piece of cake, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. But,
data retrieval by wormhole.
Yeah, exactly. It's things like that where you're keeping the community interested and being like, we'll get something soon, and then the engineers working towards, trying to get that data as fast as possible back down to Earth, so you can display something. Just be like, look, it worked. Even the latest lander on Mars, I forgot. Insight. Yeah, where it was like, it's dusty, but it's there. Yeah. Those moments.
I think that was also part of the appeal because we are so used to instant gratification here on planet Earth, particularly here in the United States, and I want it now, and suddenly the world is forced to confront the fact that we are limited by the speed of light, that the solar system is very, very, very big. It's much bigger than you see on the lunchboxes with all the planets tightly packed together. This is a big place. The universe is big, even our tiny little neighborhood of it. So I think being forced to kind of confront the realities of the speed of light, I think also made the experience all that much more interesting, to be honest. All that being said, of course, I want my high-res data now.
Same. Or at least the telemetry.
Give me the data now. Give it now. That's kind of where we all are.
There's a question that's come in here from Robert Allen on YouTube, asking, what role did Brian May have in New Horizons? And Christian, I believe you actually got to see Brian May.
Yes, I did. I do apologize once again for the terrible audio during that press opportunity. But the good news, we were right in the front row. But the bad news is I don't own one of those shotgun microphones that can pick up audio too well. However, Brian May's role, he is a member of the science team. His background is in studying interplanetary dust. And that's really important because it played, obviously we're all from interplanetary dust. That's what formed us. So being that this is a Kuiper Belt object, this was right in Brian May's wheelhouse. So he is a member of the science team. Now, what is his specific role on the science team? I'm not 100% certain. I know that he's going to be very interested in understanding the chemical makeup, which are probably tholins, but nobody wants to say the T word yet. But he's probably very interested, I think, in the chemical makeup of the surface. As far as his role during the flyby, his role was to be Brian May. I mean, his role, he's a musician. He's very talented. When he actually played in a rock band once. I mean, the kids really seem to like him.
Wait, what?
A rock band? Really?
Yeah, it's called Queen.
Queen.
Oh, right. Yeah. He's the
but this is good
guitarist.
because it really shows he got his degree in 2008. He got his PhD, rather. He finished his PhD in 2008. And it really shows that you can become an astrophysicist at any age, no matter what your professional background was. So, you could be a rock god and still make it as an astronomer. I'm such a fraud.
Look at Leland Melvin. I mean, he has a background in the NFL and became an astronaut. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, Leland Melvin. So, yeah, he's super awesome.
There's a hilarious comment in the chat. I've got to bring this up. Space TV on YouTube says, Brian May's hair also acts as an antenna for receiving New Horizons data.
It's true. It's got a very large collection there.
It's business in the front and party in the back.
Brian's a good guy.
Oh, man.
That was funny.
So what else do you, I know, so you did the New Horizons stuff, but you also have LaunchPad Astronomy. You've got a bunch of projects you're working on. Let's start with LaunchPad Astronomy and talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, as I said at the beginning, LaunchPad started out and still is very much a workshop intended for writers and creative professionals, where we bring them to the University of Wyoming. It was started by my best friend, Dr. Mike Brotherton, who's an astronomer at the University of Wyoming and also a science fiction writer. We are both science fiction fans, and we want our science fiction to teach their audiences as best as possible about the cosmos. So we run this workshop every year. We have that coming up in July of this year. We'll be making an announcement. So if you are a writer or a creative professional and would like to apply to attend, please do. We'll put the announcement out. Just follow us at LaunchPad Astro or subscribe to the channel, whatever. We'll be making announcements to get that out there. Then, of course, there's the LaunchPad Astronomy channel, which I'm trying to grow. It's pretty small right now, but it actually grew quite a bit during the lead up to Ultima. I got something like 1,000 subscribers in less than a month, and I got like 500 subscribers in 3 days. That was just really amazing. So welcome, and I guess I'll shamelessly plug my channel where I like to talk about space science, but also astronomy, and just kind of breaking it down to, just breaking it down into ordinary conversational talk. It's just so much fun to talk about. Let's see. As far as other projects are concerned, I think we had a very successful live stream despite all of our hiccups. We've learned a lot. I learned an awful lot during the live stream.
No, it makes it human. It makes it fun. It's makes it part of a community experience that you're not this. It adds to the experience.
And I got to collaborate with my favorite channels. I mean, holy moly! I mean, that was the thing that blew my mind. I got to meet you guys and work with you all, and I learned so much from you guys. And everybody in the chat room was going nuts. I mean, man, that was awesome. And so we want to do it again. And I'm not prepared to announce anything today because we're just in the talking stages. But we want to be able to, live stream events that are of interest. I mean, that's so exciting to turn these things from just a spectator event into a party. And I think we should do that. Anytime we can get together as human beings and celebrate exploration, that to me is humanity at its very best.
Oh yeah,
right there.
There's a
we're
comment.
exploring. If we're celebrating it, let's do it.
There was a comment that was.
And I'm also selling shirts, and I have Patreon. So I'm trying to turn my channel into a business that I can use to support my teaching habit. That's basically
it's a good habit.
So there was a comment that was dropped in on the community forums before the show, and actually moving forward, we're going to be having separate threads for each show beforehand and tell you who's going to be on and what topics we're going to talk about. And if you want to get your stuff in the show beforehand, maybe you're sleeping right now while we're live, you can do that by commenting on that thread. So Frida actually came in on the community forums and asked, can we look forward to more partnerships in 2019, like the LaunchPad Astronomy, Deep Astronomy, and Tomorrow's Success during the Ultima Thule daily flyby. By the way, I feel this collaboration and partnership was absolutely great, innovative, and a tasty recipe for good things.
I would say yes.
Yeah,
right?
Why
I think
not?
we're all-
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I think at least from our standpoint, yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think we're all about just having a conversation. I like to view the show as it's a weekly gathering of space geeks to get together and just nerd out over things that we're excited about, right? So we're all excited about space stuff. We all think this stuff is really, really cool. So we just get together and we just, I almost want like drinks in front of us here so we can have a nice drink and be like, oh my God, we made it to a Kuiper Belt object. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, exactly. And cheers.
Well, the best part about it is that we're not NASA, so we can drink on the air.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
on the air, we can curse on the air, we can have a good time.
You actually said
Frag, yeah.
you skirted over this a little bit, but you have a commemorative T-shirt, something T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. So the LaunchPad Astronomy logo was designed by a former student of mine who has done some amazing work, but I'll just get right to it. I asked her, I said, would you consider coming up with a commemorative T-shirt to celebrate the flyby? So I'm just going to go ahead and just put a link in the chat here.
Watch this magic technology.
This literally just came to me like within minutes of the video. Now I might have to change the design just a little bit to center it up. But once I do, it'll be here. But this is what we were thinking in terms of a shirt design. And if you guys want to help support the channel, that's one way you could do it, I guess. I'll a shameless plug, but I thought it would just be kind of fun just to have something nice that people can wear and remember this incredible moment with.
We'll add that in the show notes.
Yeah. Christian, who was your favorite person that you talked to in person? Because you actually got the ability to kind of be a roving reporter and kind of run around during APL. Was there anyone in particular that stood out for you?
Well, I was very grateful to get to speak with Alan Stern, but I'm going to have to give a real special shout out. I mean, there's so many wonderful people I spoke with, but Dr. Heidi Hamill is somebody who I really enjoy. She's a fellow Deadhead, so we got to rap a little bit about some Grateful Dead shows that we'd been to back in the day. But she's just her enthusiasm is infectious. Her joy at the exploration. So I really enjoyed chatting with Heidi.
Dutta was actually able to get an image of the shirt, so we can actually bring it up on air.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah.
Nice.
I want one.
So we'll add. You said it's not ready for anything, so there's not like a link for us to add in and be like, hey.
Well, what I noticed after I uploaded the design is that if you look closely, you'll see that it's centered on the shirt, but that's the problem because it needs to go right through the center of the axis.
Yeah.
And so just before I had uploaded and then I deleted a corrected design. So, but if you go to I'll put a link just to my Teespring store here, but if you go to that Teespring store, you'll see the updated design. I'm going to put it up there right after the show.
All right, sounds great.
Nice.
I think I'm going to close out the show with, unless there's anything else from the chat room. All right, close out the show with one final question for you, and answer this any way you want. But Christian, why is space important to you?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it really is about this yearning that I think must be wired into our DNA. It must be something about the way we evolved as creatures to want to explore, to want to understand the world around us, to want to reach beyond our grasp. Whether that exploration is conducted with a telescope or with a spacecraft, it matters that we do this. It matters that we try to do these hard things and try to understand our world as best as we can. Whenever we can do this together as a species, whenever we can come together as a civilization, and that's really what we are a civilization. We can do these things that are worthy of a civilization. That's humanity at its best. And I'm not trying to lay it on too thick here. I just feel that very strongly. If we can do these things together, we're going to make it. we're going to make it. We may beat the Fermi paradox. We may beat our own extinction this way. So to me, exploration is really our doorway into immortality.
It's also a great shirt.
Yeah.
Right? That was a great answer.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, right?
There you
Yeah.
go.
Exploration is a gateway to immortality. Oh, that's a great. Thank you so much for taking
I
time.
just want to give a special shout out to my student, wonderful artist, Elise Carmichael. You can follow her on Instagram at Elise C Illustration. She's an incredibly talented artist, and I'm just so grateful to her. Elise, well done on the LaunchPad logo. Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming on the show, taking time out of your Saturday, and helping us with our updated format. Like you're kind of our first guinea pig to see how we could bring a guest in and kind of almost have you as a guest host throughout the entire show. I felt like it worked really well. Your passion for space is infectious. It's a lot of fun, and you just did a great job both in the webcast and today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and this has just been a delight, and I'm overjoyed to be here. I mean, really, I'm such a huge fan.
Before we go, I did want to thank all of the patrons of tomorrow, citizens of tomorrow. Oh, I'm so Rusty. Rusty. Jeez. Oh, man. Rusty.
You're pasty, too.
Pasty,
man.
too.
Wow.
Tasty.
My goodness.
Escape Velocity citizens help to contribute $10 or more to the specific episode. We also have our orbital citizens who've contributed $5 or more to the specific episode. Our suborbital citizens who've contributed $2.50 to this specific episode. Obviously, they get their name in the show. They get access to the link, like the special citizen-only link, where you get access to the pre-show, the show unedited, and the post-show also unedited. It's also where After Dark is essentially gone. It's just basically gone just because we're just making it like a post-show, just kind of us hanging around and just talking about whatever. So if you want access to that, become a citizen of tomorrow. And you can also do that at our ground support level. You'll still get access to the just the full show link and a bunch of other cool things. We're also working on some really interesting actual swag to give you once you reach total membership, lifetime pledge kind of things. So, like, there will be different tiers inside of the tiers. I haven't worked out all those details, but those will be worked out shortly. It's going to be some pretty cool stuff. I'm really excited for that. You've seen some of the patches. And then I'm working on a challenge coin as well. And I mean, you as a community of tomorrow, tell me what you'd like, right? Tell me what inspires you, and we'll make that happen. And seriously, from the heart, thank you everyone for making that happen. Or heading over to community and contributing that way. People who contribute to the show. Colton is another really great person. Actually, we use Colton's chat room. Go ahead, Mike.
Can I get a T-shirt with your face on it that says "Ben is my homeboy"? I'd really like one.
I feel like that needs to be a thing.
We're talking.
I don't think I can make it though. Like, someone in the community needs to make that. That's not me, and I think that would be a little hilarious, actually.
Yikes.
And I want a weird face from you too. I want you to be like, huh?
Those are the only faces I make, Mike. Those are the only faces I make.
Let's get the one with the rocket on it.
Oh, that's an After Dark story. Well, hang on. Before we get into next week, a quick housekeeping note, which is you may have noticed we didn't do Launch Minute this week. We're not going to be doing Launch Minute inside of the show anymore, at least for now. The reason is the show is designed to be a conversation. It's supposed to be just us nerding out with you as a live conversation. There's no conversation in Launch Minute. It's just a bunch of launches. So we're still going to do it, but it's going to be its own standalone video. We're going to try to publish those Friday. Friday morning is when you'll start seeing Launch Minute, so we'll go over the launches from that last week. It'll go over the topics, like we're going to promote the next Saturday's show, so you can leave your comments in Launch Minute for any questions or items you have for that topic, or on the community forum. And then I haven't decided if we're going to add in next week's launches as well. We're going to leave the launch calendar in the show because it's a good breaking point, but we might add the launch calendar in the Launch Minute as well. So don't worry, Launch Minute's not gone. It's just becoming its own thing on the channel itself. So hopefully you like that. Hopefully that works a little bit better for everyone, and then we can post it to like Twitter and whatnot and other places. Yeah. Next week we have got, who do we have, Lisa?
Well, we have Peter Beck, the CEO and founder of Rocket Lab. He's going to come on.
The laboratory.
The laboratory.
Rocket Laboratory.
The Rocket Laboratory.
He's going to come on and talk to us about what's changed since the last time he was on, because he was on in August of 2018.
He was on twice.
I feel like, the company did some stuff.
A few things.
A little, I don't know.
I'm not going to lie. I lost a bet. I lost 2 bets in 2018. The first bet, I have to give Mike $1. We'll do that. We'll have to figure out how to do that through the space-time continuum. Yep, we'll do that. Because China had more launches than the U.S. in 2018. That was the bet. So congratulations to China and to Mike for winning that. And then I bet you that Rocket Lab would not launch twice by the end of the year. So they'd already launched at the beginning of the year, and then they were going to try 2 more launches. And I'm like, this is a brand new rocket. That's not happening. And I've never been more glad to lose a bet in my life. That was an amazing bet to lose. So congratulations.
It was pretty fun, I gotta admit. And Pete's going to be in studio as well. And he'll be talking about what to expect in 2019 and all that fun stuff. So
Pete is a nerd, like a great nerd too. So it's going to be a lot of fun to just like nerd out with him.
Should be good.
And just,
if you've got questions that you want to ask, make sure you put it in the community forum so that we can prepare them in advance as well.
All right, thank you everyone so much for joining. I hope you like the new format. If you do or if you don't, if you'd like to see changes, please let us know what you think in the comments. Constructive criticism is helpful, both for and for against. We'd love to hear what you think. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.